At first, the LSD made him sick at his stomach, but then Tommy began to hallucinate. The air began to be filled with rainbows. The very atmosphere seemed to be a moving current of multicolored particles which came streaming down around him. When he listened to the stereo, he saw colored particles floating out from the speaker. When he looked at the walls, they seemed to be melting. The pictures on the walls became liquefied with colors running down like waterfalls. It was sensational. Inside himself, Tommy felt sublimated, sort of suspended in space. He had a euphoric feeling of wonderful well-being. Then he looked in a mirror, and something horrible happened. The cult of LSD users call any of these psychedelic experiences good trips if they don't end up out of control. But they never know when a bad trip will hit. Just about the time a user begins boasting that he has become a real acid head and suffers no real ill effects, a bad trip can sweep him into emotional oblivion. A bad trip can send him wandering down the highway seeking to merge himself with some speeding automobile. It can send him into epileptic fits, make him schizophrenic, or permanently impair his sanity. Lysergic acid formula 25 called LSD. A close friend told him LSD was psychedelic, mind expanding. Scientists suspect that the LSD has its greatest impact on that part of the brain which decodes and interprets sensory impulses. By paralyzing or scrambling these sensory signals, patterns in the brain become flamboyant, twisted, unreal. Sometimes the user thinks he can smell or taste the sound of music, or, as was the case with Tommy, he thinks he can see the music. The capacity of the brain to associate the present with the past is impaired. Perfectly familiar objects may seem completely foreign or non-identifiable. At the same time, the most bizarre associations seem to cloud the conscious mind, so that a user can be looking at a person and suddenly gain the impression that that person is dissolving away or turning into some kind of a strange monster. By Dr. Albert Hoffman of the Sandoz Chemical Laboratories in Switzerland. Dr. Hoffman was doing special research with a purple fungus. This fungus contained lysergic acid which Dr. Hoffman was processing in a variety of ways to see if he could find something to tone up the nervous system. One of the formulas he compounded was designated as number 25. formulas he compounded was designated as number 25. It was not until 5 years later that Dr. Hoffman discovered that his Formula 25 was a psychedelic drug. While working with it, he accidentally inhaled some of the fumes. Within a short time, he began to hallucinate. He wrote that for 2 hours he had fantastic visions of extraordinary vividness, accompanied by a kaleidoscopic display of intense coloration.